Hi, I want to do just a quick introduction here of, the purpose of this video is to show a technique to introduce dents into the side of a plastic gondola car. I hope this shows up pretty well. You might be able to see there both inside and outside the dents that were put in. Obviously this car has also been weathered. Do want to note that before I even finished the denting, I had weathered the car, and the particular technique that I'm going to show you when applying heat later didn't really affect the acrylic weathering that I had on there at all. The other thing I'm going to point out while I have this car close to me in this video is this, hopefully you can see this corrugated wire that runs down through here, and I'm assuming that's like a tie strap on the real prototype gondolas. I've seen them with that on there, and I will explain as we go along how those things were fabricated. So here's the car. I have it assembled up to the point where I have all the details installed, the stirrups, grab irons, so on and so forth. We're giving the underframe. The reason I do that is, as you can see from the other weathered car, you don't really want to be trying to install those details after you deform the car. It's tough enough to kind of get them in when the car is straight. You can imagine the battle you'd have trying to get everything to line up later. So this technique doesn't affect those in any way that's negative to the model. The other thing I want to mention is, you can see when I'm talking about assembly, I have not put the floor weight or the floor in. Initially when I did the car to the left, I did have the floor installed plus the weight, and it only allowed me to take the dents down so far and not to the rivet line. Hopefully you can pick that up. There's the rivet line for the floor fully. So I took the floor and the weight out of the assembled car and made the dents even deeper onto the sides. That was pointed out to me by somebody in an online modeling group. That, hey, you need to go a little further with these. So that was good advice. The other thing I have here is, you see I've got the benzomatic torch. This is the torch that, after I did some research on from reviews online, that I went and picked up at a big box store, will stay consistently on, or continuous operation. This is an accessory that comes in the torch. It just bolts on, as you can see. One thing I do have on here that I did not use to create the denting is the solder tip. So just kind of leave that off to the side. I did look at some of the other torches, and basically they were Bic lighters, didn't have good reviews. The other thing I had tried was something like this stick lighter. Very hard to control the heat consistently. I even tried my soldering iron station, which is somewhat of a precision station that you can set the temperature on, and I still couldn't get the results that I wanted. So with that's kind of the inventory. These are over here. These are just things that I use to create the dents and gouges. And honestly, you can use your finger as well. Of course, the plastic's going to be a little hot, so be careful. The other thing, you may actually want to wear a rubber glove too, just to keep fingerprints from transposing onto your model, because that's how soft that the plastic actually gets. So with that, I will move on to the next phase here and start the denting process itself. So hang tight. Yes, I'm gonna hope this really, we're able to get in, get a nice tight shot of what's going on here. what you want to do, the inside of this car has detail, strapping detail on it, so you can tell like where the panels are. In between those would be the ribs. As you can see, you kind of match them up, rib there, rib there. So we're going to focus on the areas in between there. If you don't have that detail, I would just use the other side of the car as a guide, because they're pretty much symmetrical when they manufacture these. So I've got my torch on continuous operation, and as you can see, it's pretty hot in there. It's going to produce what we want. There's no direct flame coming out the end. As you can see, I can hold my finger in front of it, not for very long, but for a little while, and it produces a very consistent heat. So the other thing I want to point out here is I have this piece of glass. You could use any flat surface. What that does is when you heat this, it lets these outside ribs rest against it. So when you push on that with whatever you choose, it keeps those ribs in place. It doesn't necessarily bend them, even though later on you may want to go back and heat the car up a little bit and do that. But at this point, you're not looking for that. You're just looking for the areas in between the panels. So focus on one or two areas at a time. Hopefully this will catch how it changes the appearance of the plastic. I've been having pretty good luck with like 5 or 6 seconds. You can see it kind of changed a little bit. I'm just going to use my finger, push it out, and there's the first blister. Okay, so you just work your way down through. As you can see, it hasn't changed anything dramatically as far as the plastic of the car. It hasn't deformed anything. So let's go to the next section. Again, hopefully you can see that area in the car change colors. This time I'm going to use a tool, maybe put in a little couple extra pops or dents in it. Maybe even work it from the outside. You can see that provides a little bit of additional features on it. And again, it's just changing kind of the sheen of the car, the sheen of that area. So let's keep moving along here. I'm not going to do the whole car because that would be extremely boring. But put it down, push on it, hold it. And again, you can adjust this later. If you don't like it, you know, then you'll take it back off. But there's a dent, okay? And like I say, you can look at that and go, well, I don't really like that. I'm going to go in from the outside of the car and do a little work to it there. And you can, again, just, you know, even use your fingernail. You can put additional marks in it or put it exactly where you want. It is going to melt the top rail a little bit, but that's good because these top rails, these side panels don't get dented while these top rails remain pristine and intact. So I'm going to do a couple more here. Again, kind of hear the torch popping. That's okay. So a few more seconds there. Put it down flat. Hold it. Again, if you go too far, you can always back up. But there's a dent there. So again, I'll demonstrate that. So you can see it kind of change sheen there, texture, bulge it in and out, and that's what makes those panels work. I'm going to go ahead and work on the rest of the car. Again, I want it to look like the one that I've shown you before. So give me a little bit here and I will come back and show you what the finished car looks like, but not weathered. Now if you want to focus again on a little bit of the top rail. They obviously took their fair share of abuse. bit of ripple as I go down the car. I'm working on a little bit wider swatches. Anything looks a little too exaggerated, heat it back up, change it. At the end of the day, weathering will hide a multitude of sins. Try to bow out the whole side panel here, starting in the middle, just working my way back and forth and back and forth. It allows me to bend out the sides a little bit. This is a general overall effect. Okay, so I mean, there you go. You know, no two panels ever weathered or became dented and abused the same way. A lot of options. Say I don't really care for that one much. Heat it up a bit and push it back in. Push that one back in. Alright, I'll show you that top corrugated tie-down rail, how I form that here. Okay, so what I have here, this is just a piece of stranded copper wire out of, I don't know, maybe like an 18 gauge stranded wire bundle. So obviously you pull one, you get several, you know, dozen or more strands of wire. So the way that I found works for me to make that corrugation is to just lay the wire on top of a piece of styrene corrugation, which you can get from, you know, manufacturers like Plastruct and a couple others. And this is when it pays to kind of have at least a little bit of a thumbnail. So all I do is just run my thumb down that wire. And it starts making that corrugated look. You know, just do it a fairly good slow pace that you actually get your thumbnail down in the groove every once in a while there. Okay, so, and it does bow, but you can straighten it out. So hopefully you can see that it gives the effect of a corrugated piece of metal. And the way that I do that is I will just glue that onto that side of the car and then weather it right in. I just use super glue at, you know, half a dozen spots down each side and make it conform to the rail as it's left. So I'm going to show you the finished car again and put this one aside, and you can see how well everything kind of comes together when you get the weathering done. So there's the initial car that I did, and you can see hopefully that little corrugated railing along the top. I just think it adds a little bit of realism to it. I know this segment isn't about weathering, but all I do is acrylic dry brush, and then I will spray with like a Krylon matte finish or flat finish. I don't use the testers or anything like that. I do use the spray cap off the testers on my matte finish cans. I think it gives a little bit finer a spray, so there's a little extra tip for you that at least I know works for me. So hopefully this thing's all been edited well, put together, and you can use this same technique, modifying it perhaps by scale and thickness of the material. Again, these panels are about 50 thousandths thick, and you can see the technique I used. So you know, you just kind of get an eye for it, watch for the material to change, texture or sheen, and just experiment away. And again, you can heat them up from the outside and push them back in, push them around, push them to where you want them, so on and so forth. So hope it works for you. If you get a chance, maybe share some pics or whatever with ones that you tried with this technique. I'd be happy to hear that it worked for you. Thank you now.